You might not think movies about bringing dinosaurs back from extinction need to have airtight plots, but unless the T-Rex can fly, we still have some questions. You may have to rewatch the Jurassic Park trilogy to catch all these details. The filmmakers accomplished a lot of remarkable things while making the original Jurassic Park movie, but the special effects they used might be the biggest deal. And while these movies might be particularly celebrated for their innovations in CGI, the majority of the visuals we see in the first movie are practical. In fact, there are around 60 computer-generated shots in the entirety of the original Jurassic Park. Due to technological limitations, time, and money, most of the dinosaurs that made it onto our screens were still animatronics or stunt guys in suits. Knowing that makes rewatching the original movie all the more impressive. Given how far special effects have come in the decades since, seeing how believable filmmakers were able to make early 90s VFX is a testament to the immense creative force that went into the film. Looking at the more modern Jurassic World movies, which utilize over 1,500 CG VFX shots per movie, it's easy to forget what artists could achieve with enough dedication and planning.
Absolutely spectacular design, spared no expense.
While the CGI in the first Jurassic Park was fairly sparse, that doesn't mean the filmmakers didn't do incredible work with it. While most other major CGI by that time had been used to create shots of non-organic things like ships or the Rebellion's blueprints of the Death Star in Star Wars, Jurassic Park was the first film to use it for fully organic creatures. And that wasn't the only CGI first that came from the movie. Jurassic Park also saw the first digital face replacement ever put on film. While practices like that are very common in movies today, it was absolutely unheard of in 1993. In Jurassic Park, this technique was used in the scene where John Hammond's granddaughter, Lex, is escaping inside of an air vent with the other survivors. When a velociraptor peeks up through the bottom of the vent, Alan manages to kick it and Lex out. They used a stunt double to perform Lex's fall, but they looked up during the shot. So Steven Spielberg and the effects team had to get creative. While modern face replacements usually require complete 3D models of an actor's head, the Jurassic Park team opted for a 2D mesh to replace the stunt double's face frame by frame. In a way, this production choice opened up a whole new realm of possibility. Just a year after Jurassic Park's release, digital face replacement was used again to finish The Crow after Brandon Lee's untimely death. For the most part, when you see the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the original Jurassic Park, you're looking at the giant animatronic they used on set. Affectionately nicknamed Rexy behind the scenes, the gargantuan robot performed amazingly well when it actually worked. Rexy's first attack scene takes place in the pouring rain, and unfortunately, the fake rain they used to film the sequence actually got into the robot and caused it to malfunction. Even worse, the malfunctions actually caused the mechanical beast to move involuntarily. And if you think seeing a 9-ton, 20-foot robot monster move unexpectedly sounds like a terrifying prospect, the cast and crew did too. At one point, it even began chomping its jaws on its own.
Can't see us if we don't move.
For the safety and probably peace of mind of everyone on set, the crew had to dry the dinosaur's rubber skin between takes. So if you look closely, you can actually see the T-Rex animatronic switch from dry to wet during the attack. There's a lot to be admired about that first T-Rex attack scene, like Ian Malcolm's brave sacrifice and that greedy lawyer's epic demise on the toilet. But there's one glaring issue we noticed during the rewatch. To recap, the T-Rex gets loose after the security system keeping its paddock's electric fence working shuts down. Unfortunately, our protagonists are sitting in jeeps just outside its enclosure when this happens. And while the attack mainly takes place on ground level, at one point, Alan takes the kids into the loose T-Rex's paddock and climbs down a 100-foot drop to escape to safety. But in hindsight, that makes no sense. Where did that drop come from? If there was a giant drop just on the inside of the T-Rex's paddock, where would the T-Rex have stood while it was in captivity? Those tiny arms aren't exactly made for vertical climbs. The most central theme in the Jurassic Park films is the dangers of man playing God with nature.
God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
It's a warning that dates back to the earliest science fiction stories and has been a mainstay in the genre ever since. In the film, billionaire John Hammond plays God by using state-of-the-art biotechnology to genetically recreate dinosaurs in the modern day. And while he clearly succeeds, his mistake is thinking he can control them for profit.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
His scientists attempt to keep population control down in the park by making all the dinosaurs female so that it would be impossible for them to breed. But later on, Alan finds eggs in the wild, showing that the dinosaurs had found a way around Hammond's plan. There's actually a small moment earlier in the film that foreshadows this reveal. In the scene where Alan first rides Hammond's personal helicopter to the park, he can't buckle in since he only finds 2 female seatbelt clips, so he ties the 2 female belts together, finding a way through the challenge. This could easily be dismissed as a simple moment where a character struggles to understand his fancy new environment, but it's hard to miss the thematic importance on the rewatch. Goofy computer programmer Dennis Nedry seems like a harmless oaf on the outside, but he proves an instrumental part in maintaining Jurassic Park's vital computer systems and causing the mayhem that makes up the second half of the movie. At the beginning of the film, we see him meet with Dodson, a corporate rival of Hammond's who wants to get in on the dino cloning business. Feeling underpaid and underappreciated by Hammond, Nedry agrees to betray the Jurassic Park team by stealing dinosaur embryos and selling them to Dodson for cash.
Don't get cheap on me, Dodson. That was Hammond's mistake.
His plan almost works, and he even turns the security system off so he can slip out during the chaos. The only hitch is that he receives a live video call instructing him to steal the embryos and escape in less time than he expected. And while that call spurs Nedry to get to work and ultimately face Jurassic justice in the jaws of an angry dinosaur, there's a small problem with the scene looking back. When Nedry receives the live video feed, there's an obvious status bar on the bottom, suggesting the clip was pre-recorded. Since tech like Skype and FaceTime wasn't really around in the early 90s, the filmmakers probably didn't think much of this bar at the time, but knowing what we know now, it's basically a blooper hidden in plain sight. When they came out, both Jurassic Park and the novel it's based on pulled from the cutting edge of paleontology. Since the early 19th century, paleontologists have theorized that dinosaurs were giant, lumbering lizards. In fact, Tyranno-silent Rex literally translates to Lizard King. The idea persisted for decades, and dinosaurs were depicted this way in pop culture well into the 20th century. But shortly before author Michael Crichton published a Jurassic Park novel, new theories came out that upended those initial ideas about dinosaur anatomy. These theories speculate that instead of being lumbering and slow, dinosaurs were fast and dangerous, and even more shocking, they eventually evolved into modern birds. Crichton incorporated these new scientific findings into his novel, and Spielberg did the same in his film.
And look at the half-moon-shaped bones on the wrist. It's no wonder these guys learn how to fly.
But those newer theories are once again upended in the 21st century. Now modern paleontologists believe that dinosaurs were feathered, not scaly. This theory is so popular that 2022's Jurassic World Dominion actually portrayed some of its dinosaurs with bright feathers. At the end of Jurassic Park, the surviving human characters are running away from velociraptors and ultimately get cornered. It looks like everyone is about to become raptor food until the T-Rex comes out of nowhere, defeats the raptors, and becomes the film's unlikely hero. This fight allows the humans to finally escape to the jeeps, drive to the helicopter pad, and fly off the island for good. Don't get us wrong, the whole sequence is badass, and John Williams' score makes it one of the most iconic scenes in cinema. It just makes no sense. The T-Rex is so large it shakes the ground everywhere it moves. So how come no one, especially the supposedly genius raptors, heard the Rex coming before it burst into the building and attacked? It's such an exhilarating sequence that most people seem to overlook it at the time. But in hindsight, we can't help but think it's a little absurd. There's a rumored missing detail in the Lost World Jurassic Park that has long bothered fans. Apparently, velociraptors should have rampaged through the streets of San Diego alongside the T-Rex in the film's final act. But for some reason, the raptors were left out, and only the T-Rex was allowed to have any fun in the city. In the film, John Hammond loses control of his company to his evil nephew, who plans on continuing the legacy of Jurassic Park despite the disaster at Isla Nublar. Even worse, he doubles down by creating a Jurassic Park in the middle of San Diego. With construction of the new park already in motion, the next step is to bring dinosaurs to Southern California, which includes a T-Rex and its child. But the final cut of the movie shows evidence that there may have been raptors on the ship as well. In a scene that definitely pushed a PG-13 rating, authorities inspect the ship carrying the dinosaurs after it crashes onto shore. But when they get to the cramped bridge, they only find the shredded remains of crew members.
Where's the crew?
All over the place.
Looking back now, this doesn't make any sense, given the size of the T-Rex and the fact that it went straight from the holding area to the streets. There's no way that it could have killed the crew in that tiny room. Only raptors could have caused that kind of carnage. While the T-Rex is rampaging through the city, we get to see some pretty ridiculous visuals and some admittedly corny bits mixed into the mayhem. In the middle of terrorizing a suburban dog and totaling a city bus, the T-Rex also gives a group of Japanese businessmen quite a scare. They're only in frame for a few seconds, where one man yells out in his native language. There are no subtitles in the shots, so only someone who speaks Japanese would know for sure what he said. But it turns out Spielberg left a little Easter egg for fans willing to do the work to find out. In a clear reference to Godzilla, the screenwriter later confirmed that the businessman yelled, "I left Tokyo to get away from this." And while this was probably intended as a goofy homage to the great giant lizard films of old, that joke comes off somewhat tasteless now. 2001's Jurassic Park 3 sees a return of Alan Grant, who has fallen on hard times while seeking funding for his Velociraptor research. He's eventually convinced to visit Isla Sorna, the remote home of the wild dinosaurs from the Lost World, by a rich couple named Paul and Amanda Kirby. They offer to pay for Alan's research if he agrees to act as their guide as they fly over the island. But it turns out that the Kirbys were never rich, and they didn't want to visit the island for vacation. Instead, their son Eric had gone missing while sailing near the island, and they needed Grant's help to find him. Even worse, the Kirbys didn't realize that Alan hadn't been on Isla Sorna. He's been on Isla Nublar, the site of Hammond's theme park. And while this feels like quite the twist, the reveal is foreshadowed earlier in the film, if you know where to look. As the Kirbys give Alan sketchy answers and half-truths sitting in a bar before their journey, Randy Newman's song "Big Hat No Cattle" plays in the background. As they hand Alan the check, Newman sings "I lied, lied, lied." It's not quite tying seatbelts level subtlety, but it caught our attention on the rewatch.